Hello and welcome to the Grumpy Sound Guy Show. I am your host, Mr. JR Everhart. This week we are going to do a review of the DZR15’s by Yamaha. They're kind of Yamaha's flagship middle market active two-way box. It's a 15 and a horn. We're going to dig into all the do's and don'ts of that thing and whether or not you should buy that, whether it's worth your time. Yeah, you don't want to miss a second of today's show. Stick around. Hey guys, JR here. I wanted to talk to you for a quick second. If I could just have your attention for like 90 seconds, please. Can you please consider subscribing to the channel? Like 47% of you guys watching right now have not even hit the subscription button and the notification bell so that you can follow this content. And many of you are coming back week after week. Hey, look, it's okay. I do the same thing sometimes. Sometimes I am so into what a channel is posting that I forget, hey, I need to support them with my subscription. So I will hit that subscription thing. Also, if you really super dig what I'm doing here with the Grumpy Sound Guy content, please think about becoming a paid member and becoming one of the Grumpy Sound Guy Insiders. We have a wonderful group of industry professionals over there now that are answering questions and helping people get from A to B, giving recommendations on gear. I myself am in all those conversations. When I know you're an insider, I give you preferential treatment, all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely worth the price of a cup of coffee fee that it is every month to just get in there and become part of a group of guys that respectfully know how to communicate with the guys that really just need to ask some elementary level questions, I always say it's a safe place to ask dumb questions. Look, I don't know everything. Sometimes I'll get on there and post something like, hey, what do you guys know about this? What do you guys know about that? It's so different from the forums where you're ridiculed and made fun of many times. I do not tolerate that with the Grumpy Insiders. These guys are really just there trying to connect, trying to have community, and to try to do the right thing and helping everybody get to where they need to be in the business. I love you guys. Stick around for the rest of the content. Hey, what's up? Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. So, if you're looking for like an unboxing review today, this is not going to be one of those reviews because there's probably 8,000 of those all over the internet. I really just like to talk about my discoveries in real-world application with these boxes. As you can see, I have them all covered up and strapped up on this little hand cart thing, flatbed hand cart. That thing has been like worth its weight in gold. That little cart I think I got off of Amazon maybe or something like that for 40 bucks or 50 bucks or something. It's been super cheap. The wheels work really well on it, and all I do is set the speakers on it and then tie a ratchet strap around it. I put an eyelet on each end of the cart, and bam, there it is. And it makes moving these things in and out of clubs and venues super easy. So, JR, you're such a passive guy and always preaching the gospel of wooden boxes and passive boxes. Why do you all of a sudden own a active box? Well, first of all, I will say I have never been anti-active boxes. What I have been is anti-junk gear, I really, really struggle to spend my hard-earned money on any equipment that has a life expectancy of 3 to 5 years. I want stuff to last as long as I can make it last. The reason I bought these, along with 6 of the DHR coax monitors that, it's a DHR12 coax monitors that Yamaha makes. I'll do a separate review on those because I've only used those once and I like to get a few gigs under my belt with them before I give you my real world review. So far, everything's been pretty cool with those. I'm digging them. It's all good. Let's give it a little more time and we'll see how those work out. But back to the DZRs. I was carrying my amp rack around, and the amp rack probably weighs 200 pounds or something like that. And honestly, I never built CLP audio to do smaller, $500 to $800, club gigs. It just was never in my scope of vision. I really, had built this company to do bigger stuff. Street festivals. I own a mobile stage to do, small beer festivals, food truck festivals, things like that. A lot of municipality work, some corporate work. The club stuff in my mind was always going to be the bigger club stuff, because that's really kind of where I was cutting my teeth before I left my house gig and kind of went back into mobile audio. So I didn't really have anything small and compact and easy to deploy for club rigs, So for the last, 4 or 5 years since COVID, I've been carrying a pair of STX 828 double 18 subs, passive, and then a pair of SRX 715 tops, which is just a 15 and a horn. We put them on sticks, and that was more than enough to do what we do. The amp rack that I was carrying around was really originally designed to be my sub / monitor amp rack. So there was 3 amps in there for subs, 4 amps really. I always try to carry a spare amp with whatever I do in case one goes down. And then a couple 4-channel Chinese, amps to run monitors with. So just out of simplicity and not wanting to spend a bunch of money and that sort of thing, because look, what I'm getting ready to go through here it's not cheap. None of the good active stuff is cheap. And you get what you pay for, man. You just do. I think we all can surrender to that idea and can agree with that. But my amp rack rolls really, really well, so I don't really have any problems getting it in and out of clubs. We never take clubs where there's stairs or anything like that. Or take gigs like that in clubs that have stairs and that sort of thing. I am adamantly against that and do not, my back just is too far gone to be, doing that kind of, nonsense. So, a guy kind of got thinking, how can I make this club stuff? It seems like this is kind of what we're going to do in the winter months, is these smaller club gigs. How can I make that rig as efficient as possible? Well, a few years ago, I had bought a pair of JBL VRX 918 single 18 subs with the poles that screw in the top of them. So I was thinking, well, I can downsize to that, but I'm still carrying the amp rack around. To make a long story short, because I know I'm boring you to death already, it was time to look at some kind of active top at least. I still haven't heard a active sub in the middle market that can hold its weight against the VRX subs. I'm sure some of you will want to argue that with your KS118s or even the Yamaha single 18 sub, which is actually pretty cool. It still doesn't have the rear end that I'm used to in the sub compartment. And these VRX 918s, dude, they just get it done. I mean, get it done. Now, they're still passive. So right now we're running passive subs, active tops. That gave me the ability to get rid of the amp rack. What I did was I took one of my sub amps, threw it in a little 6-space rack. I threw one of my 4-channel Admark amps just to have a spare, in that rack as well, with a power strip to run a passive crossover, because I aux sub all my stuff, so I use a passive crossover to do that in that rack. So I'm just carrying a little 6-space amp rack now instead of a 16-space, rolling amp rack. And that little 6-space just lives on top of our cable trunk. I roll the control rack in. With the cable trunk for the AC cables, extension cords and stuff is usually always right next to the control rack anyways, or close by. We'll just lift that rack, the 6-space rack, off on top of the control rack, and then everything's in one thing, and it just makes our life a lot easier. Now, before I went and blew the, I don't even know, almost $3,000 or about $3,000 on these. And that includes the covers, because the Yamaha covers are ridiculously cool. They're super, super heavy duty, and the fronts zip up so you can fold that whole front up if you want to just leave the covers on it. I think they look kind of tacky that way, hanging in the air on a stand with the covers all flip-flopping around. So we always take the covers off of them. But it's just a 15 and a horn. It is a plywood wooden box. And the other thing was the amplifier had an internal cooling fan. You know, that was kind of a deal breaker for me. I wanted something like that in this unit. It has a ton of DSP. Go Google, you know, DZR15’s, and you'll get all the specs and see all the pictures of the back of the cabinet and all that kind of jazz and everything. I didn't find any of that stuff hard to navigate. I honestly don't use any of the DSP online or on board. All I did was kick up the input trim like +3. I have the knob setting at 0 unity. You know, the physical knob on it, because I'm really just doing all my processing at the console, you know, at my mixer. So I don't really need all that stuff. So I had a follower. I've been kind of leaking this information, especially on the member side, for several weeks now, and been promising this review. But several guys were like, well, did this really replace your JBLs? And that's kind of a loaded question, because you're not really comparing apples with apples. I needed something that can get the job done. Now, let me say this. These DZR15’s, they get the job done. But it's kind of like learning a new language. You know, the horn responds radically differently than the JBL. The JBL horn is much more efficient, and I can get to where I want to go quicker. Now, I'm saying that having been somebody who has mixed on those 700 SRX rigs and 800 STX rigs, man, since they came out, like, you know, early 2000s or something or whatever. So I have a lot of experience in EQing out the JBL and making those things, because the high end can be really too much on the JBL horns. A lot of people, especially like if you talk to guys about the Vertec line array stuff and everything, their biggest complaint is the horn. You know, it's just a little tinny, very mid-rangey and harsh. If you really don't have it EQ'd right and massage it correctly with the EQ and kind of just get those JBL nuances out of the way, then it can be a challenging box to use. So I'm coming from that mindset. When I'm mixing on the KF850 rig, it's a completely different mindset as well, because that rig is much more efficient all the way across the bandwidth instead of just having this little quirks here or there. But this is a middle market box. Now, it's upper end, you know, flagship middle market box, but it has its own thing. So what I found was I was returning a lot of my mid-high and high almost back to unity in my house EQ to get these horns to respond the way my JBLs did. And they didn't, they're still not there. I've got about 4 gigs on these now. Outside, inside, several different rooms inside, but it's close enough for the girls we date. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, no one's complaining. Everyone still raves about how great the mix is. Blah, 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 blah. You know, I mean, it's getting it done. And these weigh within like 3 pounds of what my SRX 715’s did. In fact, my stagehand that works with me all the time swears to God that these got to be lighter, that we're going to have to put them on a scale to see. And I'll be honest, they do feel lighter. Neodymium, you know, drivers in them and that sort of thing. It does feel lighter, you know. I mean, not by much, not a lot, but I don't know, maybe because it's a bigger box physically. And I will say this, as far as frequency response, you know, we talked a little bit about the horn being a little different than the JBL horn. These are going to replace those 715’s in a predominantly indoor, medium to, you know, large size indoor venue, you know, sort of thing. I don't know if I would necessarily put them in like a big 700 cap ballroom, but, you know, if you're 3, 4, maybe even up to 500 people or something, it's probably enough indoors, you know, for that kind of environment. I haven't been in anything that big yet to really open them up and throw the onions at them. Now, I did have them outside. The first gig I put on them, I was outside in a wide area. And these things have really good horizontal coverage, too. Be sure to look those specs up. If I'm not mistaken, it's like 90 or 100 or something like that. It's got crazy horizontal coverage for a point source box. I mean, it's usually 60. degrees. I'm pretty sure this was at least 85 or 90. I'm almost sure it was 100. I was just looking at the specs like 2 days ago, but I can never remember anything because I'm old and beat down by life, so work with me. Anyways, your bass player is going to absolutely love these boxes. I'm going to tell you why. These boxes reproduce mid-low really, really well. Now, I think if I remember correctly, when I was reading into the like just the brochure about the boxes online and that sort of thing, I think they originally were kind of setting these up so that if DJs decided to use them, it had enough bottom end that you could almost get away without a sub. I will say that is probably true. I am rolling off a high pass filter at like 70 or 80 hertz on these things. I'm not really pushing anything any lower than that. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I think I went back and even moved that up to like maybe 80 because it was doing such a good job reproducing that low mid that I just kind of had to put a little bit of a leash on it. The bass guitar sounds phenomenal in this rig. The guitar sounds phenomenal, in these speakers. When you get to vocals is kind of what separates the men from the boys with these boxes, I had to finesse it a little bit. Like I said, I had to open up a lot of the mid-range, the mid-high, the high-end, and allow it to do its thing. And it seemed like the more I pushed it, like when I was outside, it seemed like the horn really came to life. Like it wants to be run hard. You know what I mean? Some of these boxes are designed that way. That's how the EAW, KF, and JF stuff is designed. It wants you to throw the onions at them. They don't want to behave when you try to turn them way down low. They're just not getting it done. It's not what they were designed to do. Now, I'm not saying that these don't sound good at low volume because they do. What I'm saying is make sure you're taking the effects that volume has on frequency reproduction into account as you're doing this. Like, what's it, Munford Fletcher, philosophy. Make sure you remember that. Google that if you don't know what that is. And basically, as you turn things up, the transducers reproduce different frequencies differently than what they do at a low volume. So it's a box that you may have to massage a little differently when you're at a low volume than when you are at a high volume, or when you're at a high volume, you'll probably find that it's going to really come to life and give you some of the things that you're looking for out of a box like this anyways. Anyone who's really taking these kind of boxes, whether they're passive or active, either way, and trying to do bigger outdoor events like for 600-800 people or something, you're really out of your mind anyways, and you're using the wrong tool for the job. And I see it all the time. I see it all the time online. I see these guys, out here at the county fair, with their country band with a pair of, K12s and KS118s trying to cover, 600-800 people or something or other. And then at the end of the night, they pack up, get back to the shop just to realize that they blew a sub or they blew a horn or something like this. Stuff isn't designed for that, man. Use it for what it's designed to do. If you're doing gigs on that level, you should have bigger gear. They also make a DZR, I think it's called a 315, where it's 2 15s and a horn. That box would probably do really well in that environment if you double stacked it. Now, I don't know what you would use for subs. I would use my STX 828s because I have 8 of them, for subs in that scenario, and I would just do a clean double stack on each side of the stage. And the 315s would probably get it done, for the county fair. I'm not talking like when Brantley Gilbert's coming through town at the county fair. And I'm talking about when your local or regional bands, or tribute bands are playing the county fair to, 600-700 people or something like that. So yeah, the right tool for the right job. Let's never forget that. I have always been a fan of Yamaha gear, really because they just last, you know what I mean? And parts are readily available when stuff breaks. Because, at some point you're going to break something. I'm okay with that, and, as long as it didn't break the third week that I've had the thing, I've got 5 of the SM15V passive rat hair wedge monitors that can also double as a house speaker or a fill speaker if you need to, as they have pole mounts in them. And then I have 6 of the CM12Vs, which is the Duratex lined wedges, 12-inch and a horn. Passive wedges, which is kind of like my A wedge rig, when I'm doing stuff with the stage and bigger street festival level stuff. The only complaint I have about Yamaha is that the pole mounts that they put in those CM12s and in these DZRs are just a little smaller than what's in my JBL stuff. So I'm having to pull out, and I have plenty of stands, but I had to throw another set. I already have four stands, 2 pair of stands in here. This 2 light stands and then 2 stands for front of house speakers. Well, now I had to throw another set of stands in there that have the smaller pole mount in it. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me unless they're just getting some ridiculous deal on these smaller pole mount inserts from China somewhere or something, which maybe they are, who knows. China has ruined everything else. I mean, it's to a point, even the DHR12s are like that, which was really disappointing because I was just really wanting everything to be uniform so I can carry one set of stands for speakers and not have to worry about it. I may even just go buy the bigger cups inserts and just replace them in all of them so that it's all the same and I don't have to carry another set of stands around. But, you know, that'll probably cost a couple $100, so you got to, you got to kind of, take all that in consideration. And I mean, that brings us to, the cost thing. These things are about, I think I got these from my Sweetwater rep. I think I got them for about $1,100 or $1,200 a piece or something like that, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't remember exactly. The covers are about $90 a piece or $100 a piece, something like that. So, I mean, you're going to end up with, $2,800 in this just for 2 speakers. In my world, I think that's expensive. Of course, I think all of this newer powered gear is way overpriced. But they're like, yeah, but you're getting a speaker and an amplifier. I'm like, yeah, but the amplifier isn't as good as the amps that are in my amp racks. And most of the time, those speaker components aren't as good as what's in my older point source stuff. So it's kind of a trade-off. It's not really that much of a selling point to someone like me. I bought the very best Yamaha makes in the middle market powered speaker realm, trying to really put my best foot forward and do this once. I almost bought the 12s instead of the 15s, but I just really like how the bass guitar sounds through 15s, unless I have 2 12s. Like in my SRX 722 rig that we fly with the stage, I have 2 12s in that situation, so the bass guitar is just fine. But when I only have one woofer in the box, I really kind of like a 15, because I just think it makes the bass sound better. So, I mean, it is what it is. So, JR, I mean, how would you rate this box? I mean, would you recommend it? There's way more DSP on this than I will ever use. And of course, I see that in a lot of newer powered stuff, and they're using it as a selling point. Yeah, but it's giving you all this DSP to do this and to do that. And it's like, I don't need any of that because I have a brain between my ears and I can actually do all those things from the console. So I don't need those features, but it has it. I didn't see, of course I didn't look, I didn't see that it had Bluetooth, which I don't need Bluetooth, I mean, my control rack has a wireless Bluetooth receiver, and I carry a little iPad mini that has all my break music set lists in it, and that's kind of, I set it that way too. So maybe I'm not the best person to talk to you about the DSP, because I pretty much turned it all off and just gave it that little +3, on the trim. Yeah, kind of getting it done. I would recommend these speakers. Number one, they're plywood wooden boxes, and they sound like it. They're not super heavy. It's not 13 ply Baltic birch. It's probably some kind of popular maple blend of wood, the same thing that JBL does with their XRX line stuff. It has Duratex coating on it instead of rat hair carpet. I'm so glad we're finally moving away from the rat hair. I hated the rat hair. It just haunted me for years. If you have a rat hair box, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You can never keep the damn things clean. They attract dirt and leaves and lint, and somebody spills something on it, it saturates it into the carpet, and it's hard to get that out. And some of those older boxes were made out of particle board, just glued together sawdust, and we all know what happens to those when they get wet. They kind of fall apart. That's the beauty of plywood. Plywood is much more tolerant of that. These have the Duratex lining on it. The covers are super cool. They sound great. You know, I'm not going to say they're the best sounding point source box I've ever heard, not by a long shot. But if you're looking to do clubs and smaller outdoor stuff, if you double stack these over a couple, like if you put 3 of these over 2 double 18s on each side of the stage, you'd probably have a nice little honking rig. But for the money you're going to spend on that, you could buy any number of QRX EV or SRX 700 series JBL or any kind of JF EAW boxes, old Meyer boxes that could really do that job a lot better, a lot more efficiently for a fraction of the cost. So there's that, you know. We'll see how these pan out. You know, I like them. They're getting the job done. The ease of deployment is way better. It's making our life easier, you know, all that kind of stuff. I will recommend, hang on here just a second. I will recommend getting some of these. These are Siamese cables, so it has the XLR and the power cable in one. This is a 50-foot here. I bought a 50-foot. These are CBI cables, so they're actually very high quality cables. They were not cheap. Let me just tell you that. I bought a 25 for one side, my short side of the stage, and a 50 to get to the other side of the stage. And it was over $300 for those 2 cables. Now you're getting a very quality, heavy-duty XLR, a quality, you know, IEC cable, you know, power cable there in it. It's nice to have them all in one cable. It looks really smooth going up the pole to the speaker. You know, especially if you're doing corporate stuff and you're trying to hide your wires anyways and that sort of stuff. So I would recommend those. I think I got those from American Music Supply, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a fair price. You know, you kind of get what you pay for, guys. I would rather do that than to buy, like, you know, some kind of Chinese-made thing that's similar to that off of, like, Amazon or something. And I seen them, and I was, boy, I'm not going to lie to you, I was tempted to buy them, you know, because... Yeah, that 50-foot was $209, you know what I'm saying? And the one on Amazon was like $40. But I'm also, every time I do that, I kind of let the tape play as to how that's going to play out in my real world application. I'm going to be at a corporate gig somewhere, and that stupid Chinese cable is going to fail on me and make me look like an idiot while, you know, the mayor of my local municipality is up on stage trying to give a heartfelt, you know, speech to the veterans or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to fail at the absolute worst time. So you're always money ahead in the long run to spend the money and get the right quality cables first, right out of the gate, and then you never have to worry about it again. So I would recommend that as well. So the DZRs, I will give 1.5 thumbs up. The only reason they're not getting 2 thumbs up is I wish the horn was a little more efficient. But it kind of sounds like a Yamaha horn. Like those of you who remember the CM 215 series, it was 215s and a horn. I had a company I used to freelance for out of Frederick years ago who had a double stack of that under or on top of JBL 728 subs. And we got it done, but again, you had to EQ it differently. And this horn kind of feels the same way. It feels like a Yamaha rig. You know, if you've ever mixed on a Yamaha rig before, then you'll be right at home with this. It does seem to have enough power to get things done. Like I said, I have the output knob at Unity and then the input DSP trim at +3, and that's kind of where I ran it. And then all my gain structure in my M32 setup was pretty much the same as what it was when I'm on the JBL rig. I try to keep that stuff uniform so I'm not having to do radically different things from one rig to another. So yeah, I think they're worth the money as much as, I mean, if you're going to go spend $1,000 or $1,200 on a box, I would buy these. If you get the 12s, the DZR 12s, I believe they were about, I don't know, $150 cheaper or something like that. You know, make sure you get the covers to take care of them. I just think they're great speakers. They're going to do everything that I want them to do. So, I mean, what the hell more do I have to say? You know, how can I possibly complain, you know, anymore about that, you know? It's doing what I wanted to do. It's making my life easier. As far as I'm concerned, that's a win. Is it the greatest sounding box I've ever heard? No. But I would put it up against any of the Turbo IQ stuff. Honestly, if I'm being just really gut level honest, and I like the Turbo IQ stuff and the QSC K-Series stuff. I'm trying to think of who else is in that. I'm not a fan of the EV stuff, and I know you EV guys are going to blow me up in the comments and hate on me about it. I'm just not. When EV sold out and started turning everything to China, I just kind of checked out, man. You know, I really don't even want to speak about it because I don't know enough about the new stuff. Every time I hear an EV rig, I'm like, it's okay. It's not great. It's okay. But I think this rig is as good or better than the IQ Turbo or the QSC K-Series, like the K12s. Probably closer to some of the upper echelons of the RCF point source powered boxes, like the ART, some of those boxes. I wouldn't put it on the same plateau, but it's a real close second. I still think the RCF box is better, but these are also cheaper. So if you want to save a few bucks and get into something that's real close to the RCF stuff without breaking the bank, there you go. So that's kind of where I am with that. So if you have listened to me talk in circles this long, you should probably be a Grumpy Sound Guy Insider. Anyone who can make it this far into the video without wanting to stab yourself in the face with a dull spoon, you should really, really consider becoming an insider and becoming a member of this YouTube channel or a member of the Facebook insider group. We got really cool stuff going on in both those groups. What's starting to develop now and just really warms my heart is we're getting a community of guys in there who are helping each other. You know, you got novice or younger guys coming to the table asking questions, and then older, more experienced guys respectfully, genuinely trying to help those guys out and answer their questions. It's not like all the bull butter you deal with on the forums where people are going to make fun of you because you asked a stupid question. I will not tolerate any of that kind of behavior, and I will kick people right out of the group if they start acting that way. You know, we're trying to create a community where we help each other. And the thing is most of us are from all over the country, so we're not in the same market, you know, chasing the same clients and that sort of thing. So no one's really stealing work from you. But, you know, I do all this to try to create a community of learning. There's some entertainment value to it, and trying to, you know, give you guys the most bang for your buck. I have kept the price low for all those memberships for about really less than the price of a cup of coffee at Starbucks. You can become a member, you know, and I'm just super excited about what's going on inside the group. You know, that will give you preferential, you know, treatment from me. Whenever I know you're a subscriber, you send me a private message on Facebook or something like that, and I know that you're a subscriber, I will answer the phone or I will respond to your message to the best of my ability. Really, at this stage of the game, if you're an insider, the best thing to do is to go to that community board here on YouTube or over to the subscription private page that's closed that only subscribers can get to, and pose that question there. And usually, if I'm not the first guy there, you're going to get a couple other guys that are going to come to the table and answer that question for you. Many times I show up in the thread and I'm just kind of like, yeah, you guys have kind of covered all the bases, and this is really the thing. I may add this because this is my little flavor about whatever the subject is, but it's really awesome to see guys helping guys and girls helping girls, you know, on that page, because we got a couple female sound engineers in there as well, and that's been awesome. You know, I'd love to see more women, you know, in the industry. Honestly, it's a tough business, manual labor wise, you know, and I know that may not be something that Kayla's looking to get into as she's coming out of high school. She's probably going to go into nursing, and hell, I probably should have went into nursing, honestly. But so we don't see a lot of women, you know, in the business, but the ones we do, and I've worked with some union stagehands, some female union stagehands that could kick my rear end all day long. I mean, they were just really on it. I just don't see a lot of that in my area, but we see it over in the insiders group, and it's super cool, you know. I am, as things are starting to calm down here in my schedule, I am going to be doing some lives probably in the insider group and outside the insider group. Probably do a live here on YouTube within the next couple months. Also going to do a live over on Facebook, and we'll be doing an insider live as well. Just trying to connect with you guys and talk with you guys and talk about the things you guys want to hear about. I'm kind of, the content is growing at such a rate now that I'm getting a lot of people asking me to talk about subjects that I have talked about multiple times. So bear with me if you're kind of seeing that like, man, he's already talked about this like twice. It's because I got new followers and new people coming to the table that want to hear me talk about silent stages or in-ear monitors. Or, I had a guy today sent me a message and said, hey man, can you do a video on, how out of control sub-frequency has gotten in a lot of bigger shows. We just did a thing on that, probably a month or 6 weeks ago or something, maybe 2 months ago, where we talked about that at length. I think I might even done a long form video, of that. So if you're not a subscriber to the channel, just like a basic subscriber, a free subscriber, I'm not talking about a paid membership at this level of the conversation, please hit that subscription button and the notification bell so you can know whenever I post videos. I usually do the Grumpy Sound Guy thing once a week is what you'll get. I do a short form video almost every day. Then you can kind of keep up with those kind of things here on YouTube. YouTube is the only place that I publicly post long form video. Now the insiders get a long form video every week as well on Facebook and YouTube. But those are closed videos that you can't get to unless you're a paid member. So if you dig this and you like this, statistically, only about 47% of the people that are watching this are subscribed to this channel. I don't know why that is. I mean, sometimes I go brain numb too and don't hit the subscription button on a channel I watch all the time, but I've tried to be more diligent with that because we all tend to be biters. We just kind of go in and take a bite of something and walk away. So I mean, I'm trying to do better at that. There's some channels that I am a member of, and that I love and I love to support financially. So I am not someone who's asking for your money, but yet don't pay it forward, because I do. I believe in that. I believe this all needs to come full circle. Look, I've talked enough. Most of you is probably already in the kitchen popping some popcorn, getting ready for your evening movie. So I'm going to let you go. I love you guys. I appreciate all your support. Please like, share, subscribe, become a member, do all the things you're supposed to be doing, okay? I love you. I'll talk to you next time.